My name is Tinesha Wirt. I have been with the district for 12 years and I'm a food service worker. I always liked working with food and I needed a job. Okay, I was a single mom and I needed money, so I heard about I looked online, jobs, and this popped up, so I applied and got in. The work that we do it's a lot. We do a lot. We prep food. Of course, we have to wash our hands, keep them clean at all times. We have to sanitize. We have to wash, rinse, and sanitize our work areas, the dishes. So we're pretty much, even though it's a school, we are pretty much running a restaurant for the most part. It's kind of like a fast food restaurant. So yeah. I wake up at 4:45 every morning. I have my quiet time at that point. I work, I have my coffee, and then by 7 a.m. I'm at work. From there, it's go time. So when I come in, I help finish making, serving with the breakfast, or I do serve breakfast. And then after breakfast, I make the salads. I make 85 salads every day, 85. And some of those salads are very entailed. Some have cucumbers, chicken, carrots, lettuce, of course. Some have tomatoes, and so it's a different salad every day. I have to physically close all of those salads and then tape the dressing to the salad. Okay, so after that, I have to put them in the cold setup. And once I do that, after I do that, I have to do the rest of the cold setup. So I have to do 100 celery. No, I have to do 100 carrots. Okay, the little bag carrots. About 75 celery. And mind you, there are 3 cold setups. Okay, because we have 3 lines. So I have to do 75 for, each line. So after that, I do my cold setup, then we do the hot setup. And after that, we might be able to take a break if everybody's there. Okay? So if we get a break, finally take a break, get to relax for about, maybe 30 minutes, 15 to 30 minutes. And after that, we serve lunch. After lunch, we clean up, start prepping for the next day. And once that's done, go home. So usually I'm here from 7 to 2 p.m., 7 a.m. to 2 p.m. every day. I take the most pride in the preparation of the food, because presentation is everything. Like I said, I've always liked working with food. So having a neat plate or a neat bowl is very important to me. I actually used to cook breakfast for my church choir, and I actually ran my own business for about 4 years doing that, catering, and things happened, so I had to stop doing that. And it's hard to focus when you're hungry, and then I know when I was younger, if my stomach growled in class, you would get made fun of, or somebody would say, oh, you didn't eat this morning, or your parents don't feed you, blah, blah, blah. Who wants to deal with that, So I think we, we help the kids be able to focus, during the day, at least until lunchtime, or as much as possible. So I think meals are important. Eating is important for everybody, but especially kids. I think I have developed a rapport with, I can develop a rapport with anybody. I consider myself a cool person, So when the kids come through, I'm just kind of like, hey, hey man, where are your vegetables? Where's your fruit? So they're like, oh, miss, I don't want that today. You gotta take it. Take it, And I try to just keep an easygoing relationship with all the kids, And some are a little standoffish, but for the most part, I think I can talk to all of them. Some kids, even though they have mentors at school, I think some kids don't feel comfortable going to them, so they need a outside in person. And I think sometimes I'm that person. I let the kids know that they can come to me. I'm not here to judge you. I'm not here to chastise you or anything like that. Because these days kids go through a lot. Some kids go through more than other kids do in 5 minutes. And they need someone to talk to. And if I can be that person, then so be it. I remember when I first started as a sub at John Burroughs Middle School. There was this one girl, she was having a hard time trying to figure out who she was, who she wanted. Does she want to be with the smart kids or, not smart, all the kids are smart, but does she want to be with the cool kids or the kids that actually look like they're progressing? You know what I mean? I think I let her know that it is in fact her decision, but the way I put it to her, it was not to say that the people she was hanging with at the time weren't going to be successful, but why not be successful earlier than later? So if you can, as I've told my daughter myself many times, you work hard now, you play hard later. So I think I tell all my kids that, you work hard now, play hard later. And I think once they hear that, it registers, It may not register right off the bat, but I think with that specific child, I think she heard me because from what I understand, she graduated. I haven't seen her in years, but I will say that I heard that she graduated, and she's in, I forgot what they said she does, but she's doing very well at this point. People have told me to my face, oh, all you do is warm up the food and serve it. That's not all we do. It's not all we do. We actually prepare this stuff, we have to pan it, we have to cook it, we have to re-pan it into another container in order to serve it to the kids. We have to put it into the hot packs. We have to put it into the cold setups. There's a lot that we do. We're not just one. It's nothing. We don't have a microwave. Okay. Some of the stuff we actually have to cook from scratch. Again, the salads, and even though it's already processed, we have to actually mix up and scoop the macaroni and cheese, the mashed potatoes, even though they may be powdered, but we still have to mix them. We got to cook them. We got to mix them up, make sure they get them in the oven, make sure they get up to temp. Temperature has to be 165 before we get all the way through, before we could serve anything. Okay? So these are the things that we do on a daily basis. We're taking temperatures, we're serving, we're prepping, And if you have to do all of this for at least, let's say, almost 700 kids, that's work. So yeah, they don't realize how hard it is. Because honestly, with the work that we do, there should be at least 2 people at each station. Even for the salads, it shouldn't just be one person, because there should be someone who puts the lettuce in, then somebody, can put the croutons. There should be what's the word I'm looking for? It should be like a revolving door. Yeah, an assembly line. Food service has always been hard. But I think it was a little within the assembly line, it can be a little easier, a lot easier. And then the kids don't have to wait sometimes for certain things to come out. Everything is out there already, So, yeah, I think more workers and more hours. Because right now, the highest worker, as far as food services, the lower part, we're only 6.5 hours. So we have to get a certain amount of things done in that time, including prepping for the next day. So if you only have 5 or 6 people trying to feed 600 to 700 kids, when you think about it, is it really enough time? In 6.5 hours. And that's just on the west side. Some schools are serving to at least 2,000 kids. So, and these are elementary schools. So if you have that many kids and you only have 6.5 hours, and not to mention these pots are heavy, so you got to carry the pots. You got to carry the pans. You got to do this. You got to do that. You got to put this here, put that there, and everything is protocol. You have to temp everything. I know myself, I have carpal tunnel. I don't have my brace on right now, but because it's hard to work with it, But as soon as I'm off work, my wrist it'll swell up and look like, kind of like a balloon, and I have to put the wrist brace back on. Our backs hurt. Everybody's backs hurt. Our feet are burning. And at this school specifically, when you came in, you saw how far we have to walk. So imagine you got to walk when you get off work after being on your feet all day. You have to walk back that way. And then if you have kids at home, small ones, you got to run around with them. And they want to play horsey and, oh, mommy's a horse, mommy's this, mommy, give me a piggyback ride, hold me, but you're tired. You're sitting at your kid's recital and you're falling asleep. You're at a football game for your son or daughter, and you're falling asleep. Like you're just sitting there and you're exhausted. This is an exhausting job, and not to say that we like our jobs, most of us like our jobs. But I can't say that I feel appreciated because I don't. So it does take a toll on the body. And sometimes the kids do have to wait for certain things to come out because we don't have enough staff to get things done. Yeah. We're in the trenches. We're on the front lines. So why can't we be compensated for that? I probably have the lowest rent out of the entire district, but I'm still struggling on whether to pay my gas bill or my car note, or do I pay the whole this or that, ordeal. Why is it that the administrators they're making buku cash, and we're struggling taking home $1,000 a month? These days, who can actually possibly make it on $1,000 a month? But that's what, we do it because that's what we have. It's not easy, but we don't have a choice, So some stuff sometimes gets paid late, and with the cost of living going up, why shouldn't our wages? It's not fair. It's not right. And we need more money for everything that we do. We need more. We deserve more. So when are we going to get it? But food services has always been at the lowest of the totem pole. Why that is, I don't know. But it needs to change. Yeah, at one point I did work a second job, but it was just too much because I was actually working 13 hours a day. So I would maybe sleep for about 4 hours and then it's right back to work, and then that went on all day, You know, only time I had off was on weekends. And I would be so tired that I didn't have time for my kid. It wasn't fair to her. So I had to let something go. So I had to let the higher paying job, which was this one, I'd keep that and I had to let the lower paying job go and keep the higher paying job, which was this one, in order to be there for my child. You know, so it's if or, you know, what are you gonna do? We work hard. We come, if you want us here on time, some of us don't have cars. Some of us do have cars, but we have to keep those cars up. We have to be able to get here on time. You know, if we don't have the money to do that, how are we going to get here? If we don't show up, who's going to feed these kids? So why is it okay that we have to struggle? You know, we want to be able to pay a bill without having to worry about, can I pay? Do I have enough to pay this bill? You know, it goes back to the if or. Do I pay this or do I pay that? Why can't we pay our bills the same way you pay yours? Why do we have to pick and choose? And you could just, you know, you have an accountant. You know, you have direct deposit. You could just, you don't have to worry about who's going to pay your next bill or how it's going to get paid, because you make enough for it to be paid automatically. Auto pay, that's what it is. Us, we have to pick and choose. How is that fair? It's not fair. And why should it continue? So if we're all coming at them with the same issue, they have to listen. They absolutely have to listen, because you can't keep doing the same thing expecting a different result. So it's important for all of us to speak up on these issues in order to get what we want, in order to get what we feel we deserve.
I'm just curious, where were you during the 2023 LAUSD strike?
Right there, striking. I was right there striking.
How was that experience for you?
It was deep, you know, it was empowering. It let me know that, again, my voice was heard, you know. I let it be known. And I'm glad others were there with me for them to hear it. Stop lying to us. Pay us what we're worth. During COVID, during the pandemic, you told us that we were essential. So just because the pandemic is over, we're not essential anymore? That's bullshit. We work hard for you. We're the ones that create this money for you. Okay? Us and the kids. We're still essential, so you say. So if we're so essential, then pay us essentially. Period.